and welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video series which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, and experience from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Haykuhi Harutunian. Hopefully, I haven't scrambled your name too much, Haykuhi, but welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Reed. Thanks for making me part of this really interesting podcast. And I hope people kind of following and listening to this episode will enjoy.
Well, let me introduce you to our audience so people have a little bit of your background. You are the former chair of Armenian's Corruption Prevention Commission, and you have over 18 years experience, practical implications, concepts on human rights, justice, good governance, and corruption prevention. And you have received a number of awards and honors, including the recognition for outstanding commitment to transparency, rule of law, and that is the Access to Justice Award. So again, I want to thank you for being on the program. As mentioned, you are from Armenia, Yerevan, Armenia, the capital. For those people who might have heard Armenia but don't really have a picture of Armenia, could you describe Armenia for us?
Thanks so much for making also Armenia visible to the world. I know already many people know Armenians, but probably what is Armenia, that's the basic understanding also we want to share. So for those who somehow tie themselves and identify through religion, let me to put a kind of description for them. We use as Armenians to describe Armenia as a place of the Noah's Ark, where the Noah's Ark ended, and the most important mountain Ararat for us as a symbol for that, we kind of perceive is located in the land of Armenia. So this is a kind of place where also many Armenians for 1915 genocide ended in the end to build or rebuild the country, where we can still bring back also all Armenians who are spread all over the world. And that piece of land also has experienced the Soviet period of time. For those who now speak and know about Russia, of course, they can also recall the memory when around Russia there were other countries combined and kind of unified to call them the Union of Soviet countries. And then in 1991, when the Soviet Union has collapsed, Armenia as one of these countries got its independence. And since that, we are, and me, myself, you mentioned my professional part of the work, we are trying to build a country where we kind of respect human beings, their dignity, but also rule of law, and we kind of follow democracy that is there in the rest of the democratic world. We have culturally very emotional, sweet, but also hosting culture. That's what is attracting very much most of the people who have ever visited Armenia. As people, we are warm in our hearts, but we are strong in our hands, because that kind of survival, but also fight for the existence has been part of our struggle, but also history. We have kind of piece of land which gives us still very organic food. That's another aspect of being proud. And you also yourself being here, you experience that part as well. And I can go on and describe all the positive and well kind of deserved qualities of Armenian people that assembles this land called Armenia.
Now, I found it fascinating to visit Armenia. First of all, a small country in population. Most Armenians actually live outside of Armenia. Mount Ararat, currently part of Turkey, very dominant on the horizon, surrounded by Turkey, Syria, Azerbaijan, Georgia. I mean, as a small country, be surrounded by these neighbors, I can imagine that you grow up, and also with that past of being a former Soviet republic. you grow up differently than if you grow up in Western Europe, the States, or Asia. That's at least what I experienced. But yourself, you not only grew up in Armenia, you also got a part of your education in Minnesota and Stanford. How did that happen, by the way?
Thanks for bringing that aspect of my professional, but also personal kind of life as well. So I started telling about Armenia and about Armenian people on a positive side, but then this small nation living in a small country at this moment has a very big and deep history, which is telling more about that fight for survival, but also for a number of victories. So I myself, I represent probably one of the first generations, if I may call it that way, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And the first question I put in my family, but also I took as a responsibility, was how and what I can do to fix the situation which I didn't like. And by that, I mean, like, you imagine the country where the whole economy is collapsed because of that collapse of the Soviet Union. You don't have your own electricity produced. You don't have your gas facilities and anything that can feed people really to live and survive. And you are surrounded also, as you mentioned, geographically in a land, in a situation where all the neighbors that you hopefully could build a relation, economic, diplomatic, political, and kind of get access to the larger world seems to be kind of enemies or frozen conflict enemies. And by that also 1991 is marked in the history of Armenia as a part of the war that we had with neighbor country Azerbaijan that continued across all these years, and probably many of our listeners and followers also have heard about the war in 2020 that escalated the conflict, and also what has the consequences of that. And like living in that environment, and by that time I was in my really first ages and a kind of piece of childhood where I had to enjoy the life. But then suddenly everything happens in a way that you put too many questions for yourself, but also for your kind of parents, how I am going to survive. And this is an important question because your parents also don't know the answer for that. They lived in completely different country. They lived in different conditions, and they are not able to kind of adapt themselves into these new conditions. And it seems that the new condition, the only frame I can give it, like building a country. And what it means building a country, it seems very much also difficult for them. And the reply to that question was, you just need to study. We need people who have good educations and also, but a warm heart, keeping that warmth in your heart, that we kind of building a country. So that was very much divisive for myself. So from that moment, regardless of all the conditions I could kind of live in, that kind of guidance was very much important for myself. And then secondly, I really felt that care about people. And the second question was, what can I do for people? And then I think I mentioned this in number of my other interviews. My father gave me the guidance also for that part, that like you need to care about people. You need really to become someone who ensures that all the people live the dignified life. And that also was something guiding me through my career. And that's how I built my professional also way of living. So I really took the education very much seriously. I grew up not in Yerevan as a capital city of this country. It was small town. And then after the graduation of the school there, I went the first institute there. I studied history, so I strengthened my knowledge about Armenian history, but also about the world history. So I could picture how Armenia, with help of myself or people like myself, can refine its place in the world. not physically, not with the kind of land, but with the added values that we can bring for the science, for the education, for human rights, for democracy. So that was very much important. And after the graduation of that, first kind of degree I received, I joined one of the local human rights organizations there. So, and that was the kind of starting point for me to connect not only myself, but also Armenia with the world, with the global community who is there to support democracy, human rights, and kind of ensure that dignified life for everyone. So from that point, I have been in all the fields and areas of public life, starting from prisons, ending in the courts, but also in public hospitals, in mental health facilities, in kind of houses for elder people, in orphanage houses. So, and everywhere I go, I would professionally bring that understanding what is the dignified life when it comes to human rights, what is the equality, and how we kind of form the service government that serves for the people to ensure their life quality. And because of that, I didn't even realize how much I was engaged. And then when this unique chance came that like I could kind of build further my professional capacities in the US, I applied for one of the best programs of the State Department. I was really lucky to be selected. And I spent more than a year in the United States to explore and understand how state institutions are built to serve for human beings and what I can take back to Armenia. And I followed whatever I see there as a democratic institution, as a kind of service to people, citizens of the country, but also as it was there, like the concept of really freedom and democracy. I came back and then I started another human rights organization already in Yerevan, in a capital city of Yerevan. And then I kind of collected my own staff, young, enthusiastic people, and mostly women, by the way. I don't have this gender kind of differentiation, but then I will tell how also it was important. And then we started to deal with all the tough situation in a public life that deals with the politics, with people governing us, but with not the same inspirations as human rights, dignity, and democracy, and trying to advocate for whatever was not there serving for the people. But at the same time, the core for that, again, has been that we are building a country. We are building a country that has to have its own place in a global world when it comes to democracy, rule of law, and adherence to all these principles that really serve to humanity and human beings. So that always, yeah, please.
Haykuhi, I was just wondering, I would find it fascinating to be able to help build a country, because that's basically what you're doing. Is there a particular template, an agreed upon template? Does it have to fit a Western democracy? Does it have to fit an historic version of Armenia? Or does it have to fit maybe another part of the world? So what references do you have, and are they agreed upon? Because I can imagine that some people, MAGA could also be translated to, okay, make Armenia great again.
Exactly. And that I probably had my own algorithm for that. And then it opened up for myself, honestly, when I was in the United States. So again, living in a small country where you heard all the time the history of survival, and specifically when you grow up, when you are reminded all the time about the genocide and being the victim of not only the history, but all the bad, let's say, intentions surrounding yourself, you somehow become used of that. And you kind of probably do not build that mindset of achiever. And honestly, I think many followers or those who will listen to this podcast can identify at least one Armenian they know. And they can recognize the character that, oh, these people seem to be really achievers. But it comes that in the place where they are gathered all together, their unification is not that kind of achievement. It's the pain which is stored there so deep that these people are not able to see the greatness in them. And I was really lucky when I came to the United States. It opened up another kind of the world for myself. And that shift in my mindset, I think, happened there, that I kind of took that away that, oh, I'm not anymore survival. I'm not in that survival mood as a part of that nation. I am achiever because through my individual capacities, professionally, I have already achieved a lot. And it has been valued also from outsiders that this is who, being Armenian, I can offer to the world. And it was completely the shift. And it became the algorithm for myself, shifting that mindset from the survival to achiever, change my perspective also, how I'm going to build this country, the way I would want not only myself, but my family, my kids to live here and be proud. And that was something very much important to drive from that point, not only myself, but also other teams and people with whom I will make an interaction. So that shift helped me also to be all the time or almost all the time in the places where people are discussing globally the future of the world. So let's take the issues on democracy and rule of law. I could offer already something that was important, but I was already kind of offering that as an Armenian, not the one who is fighting only to survive, but the one who is bringing that added value and also offering that added value to others. People who had similar history, people who had passed through same kind of strategies, but also are there to continue growth and development. And that was really important for myself, kind of opening up that landscape. And probably, if I may compare also, geographically even, the place when I grew up was surrounded by mountains. Everything I could see, like opening my eyes, were mountains. And it was kind of also probably the limitation. When I was in the United States and it's flat, the first time I saw the ocean, I saw the full picture of the world. And it helped me also to perceive the world that way. And I can kind of offer that algorithm, that like shifting that mindset, that the limitation, even geographically, where you are at the moment is not the limit. The greatest achievement I had for myself. And I started to share and act from that point.
Okay, so you described one of the big benefits anybody could have from traveling, by traveling and just realizing, hey, there are other horizons to look at, there are other landscapes, and the world is a bit complexer and bigger than you might realize.
Exactly. And it doesn't even also to be that much stick to your own history. Yeah. Like take out any kind of possible limitation geographically, historically, whatever has been there. Like you take that limitations, but the core aspect, who you are and whom you belong, that's the most important. And I kept that belonging as an Armenian, one that has to bring something new to the world.
Yeah. Now, this is a nice segue to a question which popped up in my mind listening to you talking about Armenia and role models. If I look at, I think there are more famous people with an Armenian background than people realize. But the ones I recognize, none of them live in Armenia, as far as I can tell. So we have Charles Aznavour. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
somebody in Paris would realize that Charles Aznavour is actually Armenian. The same goes for the singer Cher. The same goes
Mm-hmm.
for the Agassi and Kim Kardashian. All people with an Armenian roots. Um, are these role models for Armenia? Are these people you are proud of that they have that Armenian background, or and how do you want to bring them to be part of Armenia again?
So when I spoke about Armenia, another identification that is there, as I said, these are creative people. And that's very much unfortunate that it's almost 5 times more Armenians live outside of the geographic place called Armenia. So we are about 3 million living in Armenia, but imagine almost 5 times more Armenians are living outside. And because of that kind of creativity, wherever these people go, they create. Thanks for mentioning about all these really well-known people. I could continue that list in science, in education, and everywhere we have Armenians. That's the national heritage also. We are so much proud, and we are trying really to make Armenia and Armenians known through these people. So these are not only role models for us, for Armenians living here, but they are actually the ambassadors for Armenia. And we
Oh,
are trying to kind of introduce through them Armenia and Armenians, but at the same time, we are trying kind of bring back these people. At the state level, there has been introduced a special program. If I literally translate, it will be come back to home, and then all professionals who really want to come back and live here in Armenia, serving to different institutions and providing different type of services, are welcomed, but originally Armenian people, and that works. So now we are trying to mix and mingle diaspora Armenians and kind of Armenians, kind of providing that unique opportunity to live and work here. It works well. It's already third year that so-called kind of global Armenian conference is holding here in Yerevan, that also brings all the people doing different kind of projects, initiatives to support Armenians, but also to serve as ambassadors all over the world, to come and kind of check where we are, what we are doing, and how further we can develop this. And it works. It is just a little bit, again, geopolitical, geographical, and other kind of issues are still so much that sometimes these aspects of the life are not seen as much as the general politics would be seen, but they are there. So at the human level interaction, at the level of social interaction, there is much more than in the politics. But unfortunately, as everywhere, politics are prevailing everything.
unfortunately, yes. But may I ask you, do you have personal role models, or where do you draw your inspiration from?
I think as an Armenian, I would go back to the history, and these probably people are not known for the world, but as I said, I studied history, and there were queens, Armenian queens, who played very critical kind of roles during the crisis of the times that we had. And those people were my kind of also virtual guidances. I kind of course, Cleopatra is very known all over the world. We don't have this kind of movies about the Armenian queens. But as I studied the history, I studied about that wisdom and also the character that Armenian women also played. So I could kind of, the times of my own crisis in my head, I could go back and kind of put myself into these places and see how I would act, how I would kind of react to the situation. And it's really unfortunate that all these women and queens are not brought to the kind of more visible side of the world. But who knows?
Well, who knows? Maybe you can ask Cher or Kim Kardashian to play the role of a film about the Armenian queen. Who knows? It's an idea. But okay, all jokes aside, in your experience working with Armenian, also for the government, helping to create a new country, how do you identify success? How do you know you're on the right track? What are the milestones?
Oh, that's very much also interesting, because I had also different kind of transitions through my career. And I was, when I was taking public position, all my friends would kind of talk about that. And kind of there was one and the only, how say, the core aspect that guided me all the time. I would look at people around me, but also like my co-citizens. And anytime I would feel, not through the thinking, but I would feel that this particular person wouldn't be happy with the decision I am making, with the act I am doing, I would restrain myself from those kind of actions. Because like these naive aspects in human beings, and especially in Armenians, the wisdom is already there to guide. And I would all the time kind of approach that wisdom to understand when I am not following the track. And that would be the simple word. It's again, dignity of human being. If I am doing something that serves to the dignity of a person, take it the health sector, take it education sector, take it the justice aspects, wherever is it the way how a person would feel himself or herself as a dignified person? If no, then these decisions not serving to human being, then I would not act on that kind of decision. Again, the human being and the core value to recognize the human being has been guiding myself. And I can say that I have never kind of restrained myself from that aspect. And whatever I have done that really demonstrated serving to a human being, I would call it success. Because I have interacted with so many people. You mentioned about that word on justice, and that was just because I was there in all the police stations almost, where anyone has been taken unlawfully for expression of their freedom of kind of thoughts, for their fight for the freedom and liberty. And I was there with these people just to demonstrate also that we can do that. Professionally, as a lawyer, I am there for you, but we can do that together. So, and anytime I would meet that person on the street with a smile because he was really dignified, I can define that as a success. Not the kind of big words about professional and other kind of achievement, but that simple way that you bring the change for a person and it is taken and it is really seen. That's the success can I take.
That's actually, thank you for sharing that. And that's actually a nice hook to something which was in the back of my mind when we were talking, because you chaired Armenia's Corruption Prevention Commission. Two questions. First of all, what's the relation between preventing corruption and creating democracy, creating a new country? But also, how can you define a definition for what is corruption and what is not corruption, given the fact that you're creating a new country, and dependent on which culture you're in, something might be perceived as corruption or something might be perceived as the middleman maybe supporting decisions and activities to take place. I hope you understand what I'm getting to. So culture determines what it is and sometimes what it isn't. So again, how do you define corruption, and why do you find it like that, and how does it help with democracy fighting corruption?
So the easiest and the simple answer to that, like from the perspective of Armenians. So, and this is literally also I'm trying to translate. So, doing something good for someone, whether you are doing that from position, even abusing your position, or you are in a private sector and making a gift for someone, or the same gift to the public official, you are labeling that as doing something good for the person. And that kind of definition, which is professionally in all the case books and in all the professional literature you will describe as corruption, has not been perceived in this country culturally at individual level as corruption. And also that has been supported because of the structure and the system. So this post-Soviet heritage hasn't given us the system where you have the perfect or close to perfect system of checks and balance and a good public administration. So with all these lacking in the country, but also culturally supporting each other again because of that survival mood, has never defined corruption as doing something good, even illegally to someone. With starting this corruption prevention, that also was first time for the country. And this is kind of the concept that has never been there, looking at the corruption, which is a crime, from the preventive aspect, how you change the behavior and that cultural aspect to build the system where the checks and balance works perfectly. And again, the public administration serves to human beings. So my aim taking this position with all the knowledge and the professional background was more targeting on the institutional setup and the system, but also I kind of developed so much and I kind of work to bring educational aspect. So kind of starting the education from the kindergartens until the universities. So this cultural aspect of doing good to someone is not perceived as a regular and non-punishable behavior. No, there's understanding that this is exactly corruption. This is how we are harming the system, has to be prevented from the early ages. When we started the commission, and this was the institution like from the scratch, from the zero, we were just 5 people as commissioners elected by the national parliament, and there was nothing. No staff, even the physical conditions was not there. So we built office, we hired team, and when I left the position, we were about 60 people. And with these 60 people, we introduced new concepts and institutional targets. So I can bring few examples. So the first one we also spoke earlier was this electronic platform for asset disclosure. So this is kind of systemic approach, how you're preventing corruption, having the solid oversight mechanism over the kind of wealth of public officials. And it kind of demonstrated immediate results because we were able to track and to demonstrate any kind of deviation a public official will have between income, expenditure, but also the assets that someone will gain. So as a preventive mechanism, it already somehow introduced this mindset that, oh, you are kind of individually responsible to have the integrity, but also system is there watching. And this is kind of effective system. The second important aspect we introduced, which is very much also important, like code of conduct, which is like simple, right? Culturally, you don't sometimes need to have that written, but we introduced the written code of conduct for all public officials. Moreover, we wanted to integrate that more in the society, and we invited also some business to be part of the process. Then third important, which is for the first time during the entire history of the country, this background checking or integrity checking. which means that now you really value the integrity aspects in a person as much as the professional aspects to a point for the certain position. And these positions are important. Positions for judges, for investigators, for serve to people. So with this mechanism also, we brought the culture. You don't need to be someone's son to get a position, which is part of the culture. Now you have to have your own integrity to deserve for the position. And that worked as well. And the last, as I said, it's about education. That was where my passion still is. And I'm also kind of providing many kind of trainings to introduce the concept of corruption as the main risk and threat to democracy and human rights that harms the system the way that human being is not able to see and imagine its own power. So it's like somehow also I call it the mechanism of getting the power back to people. It's not preventing corruption, but also bringing the power that is there back to people so they feel themselves empowered and the honor is there to be part of the process. So that's simply what we have done. And I think that it worked. It continues. And I am there still to promote and help as much as I can.
Yeah. So Haykuhi, it's been fascinating listening to you talking about your role in helping to build a new Armenia. We're almost at the end of the interview. I have one more important question for on behalf of the audience. What's next? What does your future look like?
Oh, with all this experience, professional and personal, my attention at this moment is what's happening globally also with AI. As I said, whatever I do professionally, I will keep that core aspect of making Armenia known through that. And I'm trying at this moment kind of transfer my professional also career as well and have a kind of role playing in identifying but also providing ethical and integrity frames for the usage and development of AI. That's how I kind of wish to continue professionally. But again, that's having said that, it's just to serve again to the country, to bring that value, but also make it recognizable through that my professional work to others and to the world. And I really believe that the future, which is already happening now, creating completely different kind of world with AI. And if we are not there to preserve all these values of human rights, democracy, accountability, and transparency there as well, it's not only that Armenia, but the global community will lose. And that's where I see I can play a role and kind of help to maintain all these values there as well.
Okay, hey, then final question. As this is the brand called you, very briefly, how do you want the world to remember you?
That's a great question. I think I would really want to remember the word kind of as Armenian, but women. As I said, we don't have that historic part known well, who has played a critical and crucial role playing and helping to build a better world to live in, especially for Armenians and for other human beings having the same part of the history. And I will underline still the justice. I would want really to be memorized that I served and I brought justice to everyone.
Hey, Haykuhi, I want to thank you so much for sharing your own personal history growing up in Armenia, what you're doing to help grow and develop a new country. And it was my pleasure and honor to have this conversation with you. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much for making our history part of the global world.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.